going to be covering how to set up a model for Power Automate's AI Builder. In this particular case, we're going to be doing an image recognition model. So once you've logged into Power Automate, we'll come in here to the AI Builder, left menu, and go under Models. Once that comes up, you'll see a list of your existing models, but we're going to go ahead and create a new model. So we're going to build a model. In this particular case, we're going to be detecting custom objects and images. So we'll click on that one. So for all of these models, all these processes where you're building your own model, AI Builder provides you a wizard essentially to walk you through all the steps that you'll need to follow. It'll help you to define what it is that you're looking for. It will help you to train the model. It'll tell you, what kinds of things you need to help you train your model, depending on what your information you've provided and what you're looking to identify. And they'll provide you some examples as you're walking through here. So in this particular case, it's talking about how it will capture or how it will detect objects within the model, how you can identify those things that are in there. And when you're ready to go ahead and get started, just go ahead and click the Get Started button. And that will take you to the first step of the process. Now for image recognition, you can define however many objects that you want to search for in the images, but you'll need a minimum number of examples of each item in your images, and it'll tell you that as you're walking through it. But the first thing that you're going to do is identify what the domain is. So in this particular case, they've got kind of three predefined categories, and you almost always will select common objects. Sometimes if you're wanting to identify things on shelves, you can use that retail shelves one. And of course, brand logos is another one here that they have set up in place. But we're going to go ahead and leave it on common objects. Click Next. So the first thing you'll need to do is define what it is, what objects it is that you're looking for. So in this particular case, we're going to be identifying dice in a dice tray. So we'll go ahead and do new objects. So we'll have a number of objects that we've identified. We're going to be looking at dice of different sizes that are common for tabletop gaming. And in our particular set of dice, these are the dice that we're going to have available. So I've got 8 objects that I've defined here we're going to be looking for. If you want to have the information come from a database instead, you can use database mode, which will this will walk you through connecting to your database and then identifying what it is that you're looking for from that database. In this particular case, we're defining things ourselves. So we've got our objects here. We've got 8 objects defined. Go ahead and click Next. So as it mentions here, you'll need at least 15 images for each object that you want to detect. Now, these images should be a variety of angles, a variety of backgrounds, a variety of colors if your objects have different colors to them, different lighting conditions. You can have multiple objects in the same image. So, if you have an image, in this particular case, if you have an image that has like a 6-sided die and an 8-sided die and a 10-sided die all in the same image, that's fine. That will count as one image for each of those 3 objects. But having more than one of the same item in the same image does not count as more than one image. So if I have like 3 6-sided dice in the same image, that doesn't count as 3 images. That still only counts as one image, but you can identify all 3 of those objects within that image. And that's a good thing to do as well, to have that kind of variety. But again, the more variety that you can provide, the more examples that you can provide, the better your model will be going forward. So we're going to go ahead and add our images. So what you want to do here is just click on Add Images, and then you'll select your data source. So you can pull from a local device, you can pull from SharePoint, you can pull from blob storage. In this particular case, I've just got some dice pictures on my machine. Go ahead and click My Device. We'll select the images and click Upload. Okay, make sure we've selected them all. Go ahead and click Upload. That'll take a little while, depending on how many images, obviously, that you're uploading. There are limits on the size of the images, so the images can't be bigger than 6 megabytes. For each individual image, they have to be a certain file types. They have to be JPEG, PNG, BMP, one of those 3 file types. You can't, for instance, upload TIFF or anything, any other kinds of images. And as you can see, it's kind of grayed out at the moment, but even the recommendation there, the more images you can provide, the better. If you can provide 50 plus images of each object that you're looking for, then that's even better. But you have to have an absolute minimum of at least 2 images for each object, or at least 15 images, sorry, for each object that you're going to try to identify in your images. Once all those images are completed uploading, go ahead and click Done. And you can add more images later on, so you don't have to add all of your images at the same time. Obviously this is going to take quite a while depending on the number of objects that you're trying to identify and the number of images that you're working with. So you can just start with, do a few at a time, come back later, add more, come back later, add more. So yeah, you don't have to do everything all at once. Go ahead and click Next. You can see it'll show you in the image files that you have here. I'll show you which ones are new that you haven't gone through and done the identification with yet. So let's go ahead and here start with the first one. So for each image, what you're going to do is, you can see you've got a cursor here. It turns into a crosshair. You'll drag a box over the object on the image. So in this particular case here, come on, there we go. So for each box that you drag over, it'll ask you to identify which object it is that you are identifying in this image. In this particular case, it's a D10. And once you're through identifying the objects in the image, you can just go ahead and click the arrow to the right to go to the next image. And I'll highlight this one here. And you can see that's a 20. It's a 6-sided die. It's a D6. You don't have to be exact, and when you're dragging the box around the object, it just has to be pretty close. One thing you'll notice too is over here on the right, you'll see progress of the tags that you're applying, identifying the objects in the images. It'll show you, which image of however many you're going through here. So image 7 is 69. And it'll tell you for each object how many images you've added for that particular object. So you can see I've done 2 images with a D4, 1 image with a D6, 1 image with a D8, 2 images with a D10, and 1 image with a D20, and no images so far for any of the other ones. So it helps you keep track of progress, and that way you can identify, okay, I need more images of this particular object, I need more images of that particular object as you're going through and identifying things. You can also select specific images down here at the bottom. You'll see ones that you've already identified in. You'll see them highlighted in blue with a check mark. Ones that you haven't done yet will still be down here in normal. I'm going to skip ahead here to a couple of them that have multiple objects in them so you can see how that works. So we go here to, say, starting here. So here, so if you watch, cancel that for a second. So over here, D6, you can see there's 1 image. If that's a D6, you can see now it says 2 images. Oops. You'll also see that as I click and drag around the second one and identify that also as a D6, you can see it still says there's only 2. And the reason for that is because it's the number of images that you have for each that have that object in it, not how many objects within those images you've identified. So while in general, the more the better, and even multiple objects is better. So it can figure out how to identify instances where there's more of the same object in a single picture. you still need that minimum of 15 individual images which have that object in it. Let's go on here to the next one. So here we have another 6-sided. Come on. Sometimes it doesn't quite catch. And it's also okay if the objects in the image overlap each other. So as you're dragging the box, if there's some overlap between multiple objects in an image, that's fine. So say, for instance, let's see if I can find one that's a good example here. Okay, here's one where a couple of dice are partially covering each other. And also because you're just dragging squares, obviously not all objects are square, but the drag box that you're putting on here is square. So just drag over that one. And then drag over that one. So you can see these overlap each other, but you can still tag the individual objects and identities. So I'm not going to sit here and go through all of these. I'm going to skip ahead to the end. Another thing that you'll see as you're working through the images, as you get to the absolute minimum number of images for an object, you'll see it highlighted over here. So this basically tells you, hey, you've reached the minimum. You don't have to add any more, but of course, again, they recommend having a lot more images of each object just to assist in training the model and make the model even better. But once you do reach that absolute minimum of 15, it does highlight it over here so that you don't have to add more, but you probably should. Another example is, what if you decide you don't want to use an image? So if you've come in here to your list of images, say I don't want to use this image, so you click on that. Then just go up here in the top left, say don't use image, and click remove, and that image will be removed from your list of images. Another thing is, what if you've misidentified a particular object? So maybe I accidentally hit D2 on this one. Oops. So you can see here it's highlighted as D6. Maybe maybe I marked that as D2. Well, I just showed you how to do it, but you just click on that, click D6, and you can change that back to what it was. There we go. You also find that sometimes it tries to identify things in the picture itself, and you'll see as you move your cursor around, you might see a box appear. Sometimes you accidentally click on that, or sometimes if you click and drag, it'll suddenly expand it to more than you want. So you kind of have to watch those kinds of things to make sure that it's only grabbing the object within the box that you're trying to identify. So just keep with that. At any point, if you want to stop tagging, you just go ahead and click Done Tagging. And then you can, up here on the top right, you can click Save and Close. And what it will do is just save it here in your list that you can come back to later. So in this particular case, I didn't give it a name here, but it's this one right here. So if you want to go back into it, just click Object Detection. And you can just pick up right where you left off. It'll load up the images. You'll see the images that you've already done. These are still marked as new because it takes a little time for that to clear out after you're done. But if you want to add more images when you come back in here, then you just come over here to the right side. And it'll give you also, you can see your status updates. You can see I still need a bunch of D2s and at least one more D8 image. So I want to click Add Images, and I will go back in here and add some new images the exact same way I was doing before. Okay, so once you have reached the minimum number of examples for each image or for each object in the number of images, you can go ahead and click Next from here. And what you'll see here is a summary. You'll see where you got the images from, the model is. We're going to go ahead and rename this while we're at it. Okay. And once you're ready to train, just go ahead and click the Train button. So depending on how many images and objects you have, it can take some time, anywhere from a few minutes to several hours. to train the model. And then once the model is done, what you'll see here, while it's training, you'll see, say training status, tell you the model type. And once that's done, it'll say draft, which will tell you that it's completed training. So we'll circle back when this is completed training. Okay, so sorry, one correction. Once your model is done training, it'll say trained. But before you can use it in anything, you'll need to publish it. So what you'll do is you'll come over here. So what you need to do is once it's trained, you need to come into it here because before you can actually use the model, you have to publish it. And then once you're inside the model details page, you just go ahead and click on publish. And once that's completed publishing, you'll be able to use it in a Power Automate flow or a Power Apps application. You can also run a quick test as well, which we'll do here in just a second once it's done publishing. But what publishing does is it puts that current version of your model out there for you to use. And once that's published, after that, you can come back in here and you can make changes to the model, you can make updates to the model, and you can keep working with the model and make it better. Fix any issues with it, add more images for better detection so that your performance score improves, so it becomes more accurate. And while you're working with it, you don't the changes that you're making to it while you're working with a new version of it won't be used in the applications until you publish the next version. So basically what publishing does is it puts a version out there that your applications can use. And you can either, you can stop there or you can continue to work with the model. And then once you have an improved version, you can publish that and that will replace your existing model with the newer version. So we'll just go ahead and do a quick test in here. And I'm going to upload an image from my device. Okay, now for testing the model, you don't want to use the same images that you use to train it. You want to create new images. So in this particular case, I created these 3 images with a random collection of dice here. So just click open on the first one. So what it will do now is it'll take a look at your image and it'll see if it can identify things based on what it's got there. So in this particular case, it identified these all as D8s, which is wrong. So it got 2 of them right, and it got 2 of them wrong. So again, it depends on how well you train your model. It depends on how many images you have, how much variety, like I said, different lighting, different backgrounds, different color schemes, if the objects have different colors. The more that you do that, the better your image detection will be. So let's start over with, let's try a different one. So let's try the second image here. So you can see on this, we've got a D6, got a D2, a D8, a D4. Identified those both as D8s, those both as D2s. So you can see again, you got a couple of them right and you got a couple of them wrong. So it all depends on how much training you do, how much variety you can provide that training model. In my particular case, for this model, I just used the minimum number of images for each of the objects that we're detecting. So as you can see, because I stuck with just the minimums, I did just over 15 images each. The accuracy isn't great. So if you can do like their recommendation, they recommend a minimum of 50 images for each object that you want to try to train the model to detect. So if you can provide at least 50 images, the more images, again, the more you provide, the better the accuracy. So I've got one more image here. Let's just try the last one of the 3, just to see what we get from it. So again, these have some darker ones. There's a D8, a D12, a D6, D20, a couple other things here. So again, accuracy isn't great. Made all these D8s, which is not accurate. And then D100. So what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. So the more accurate, the more time you spend training, the more accuracy, the better you do. And so if you wanted to use the model, go ahead and use the model in an application or a flow. You can just go over here and click on Use Model. We're going to say we're going to go into Automation, do a Power App or Power Automate Flow. And what we'll do is we'll bring you over here. Okay, the default is a button triggered flow. And just go ahead and click continue. So, right out of the box, just by doing that, you have a Power Automate flow that will use that model in a button trigger app, which you can use either from a mobile device like an Android or iOS device, or you can use from your web interface. We can upload an image, have it try to detect the objects that are in that image. Now, by default, the result that it gives you back is a list of objects in JSON, text format. And if you want to look at an example of that, so let's kind of just click Save. And we're going to test that. I'll show you what the output looks like. Use manual test. So let's go ahead and just grab one of these 3 images we were testing with a moment ago. And then you can see the results that come out. So in this particular image, got 9 results. So I found a D2. I'm 94% confident of that. But what it will show you as well, come up here to the raw output. One of the things you can see is it will not only give you this doesn't let you scroll over, but not only give you the type of object that it found and the confidence score, but it will also give you the coordinates within the image of where it found that particular object. So the top 0.2, and I don't remember off the top of my head what the coordinates are. I don't think it's not pixels, but I don't remember. I think it's like a percentage of the image. So you'd have to take the image, and do some calculations to find the location of the object within the image, if you want to somehow use that to extract out the objects that are in there. But you can use that output that comes back from AI Builder as part of another application to pick apart your application, like zoomed in at the objects and what it identifies as each of those objects. And you'll get a result for each of the objects that it detects. So AI Builder, even with this example, AI Builder is a beginning point. It's something to start working with, and you take it from there and what you get out of it, and you can use that to create a much more in-depth and advanced application from the results that come out of that. So there you have it. It's a quick introduction to AI Builder and creating your own object detection model. Thank you for your time.